Good morning. So I'm just putting my face on. A couple days ago, something really kind of traumatic and scary that happened to me just kind of came flashing back to me, and I was like, whoa, how did I forget that? Like, how did I forget something that kind of extreme that happened to me? And I realized that my brain actually like blocked it out. And I know that happens when something like traumatic happens to people. And what I'm talking about isn't like really that bad. Like, I didn't get hurt or anything, but it was scary. Then I thought, let me tell you guys that story because it's not funny by any means, but it's interesting, to say the least, I guess. So I thought I would tell you about this kind of scary thing that happened to me, and again, it's not that bad. It was just kind of weird. Um, okay, so my freshman year in college, I lived in the student living for my school, and the student living for my school isn't like dorms like a regular school. It was like apartments. Like, everyone had their own living room and each apartment had their own living room. They had 2 bathrooms. Every person had their own bedroom. The thing about that was that anyone enrolled in the school, you didn't have to be a freshman, anyone enrolled in the school could live there if they wanted to, and it was right across from campus. So people who were like commuters or like adult students or whatever could live there as well. So I lived with 3 girls that were the same age as me, but our across the hall neighbors were like 30-year-old guys. Well, there was 2 like 30-year-old guys. There was one foreign exchange student from China who was our age, and then there was this other guy who I'm not even sure how old he was, but he definitely wasn't our age. He was at least a couple years older. So it was kind of weird to have people so much older than us be our neighbors, but it was whatever. The 2 older guys were actually pretty nice. The foreign exchange student was also really nice too. So it was just that 4th guy that was like kind of weird. I don't know. He wasn't rude or unfriendly. He was just kind of awkward. Like, you could tell that when he talked to us, he was like kind of nervous, and that was whatever, not a big deal. But there was something about him, and I feel like everyone kind of gets this at one point in their life. They meet someone and there's something about them that just seems off, and just kind of their presence makes you a little uncomfortable. And that's how I felt about him, and I consulted my other 3 roommates, and they were like, yeah, like, he just gives us like a weird feeling, and we were kind of like, okay, whatever. And he was like a really big guy. Like, he was like obese. He was like big. And I'm not saying that to be mean. That'll be relevant later in the story. I would see him from time to time in the hallway, and he would ask me if I wanted to like come over to his apartment, and I always said no, and I just like made an excuse like, oh, I'm like too busy or something. And sometimes he would ask to come into our apartment, and again, I would always say no, just because of that kind of uncomfortable feeling he gave me. I didn't want to put myself into a bad situation, even though, again, he wasn't mean or anything. He just gave me a weird feeling. So one day we went across the hall to go hang out with the other guys, and he was there, and I think we asked him to like get something from our apartment. I can't remember what happened, but he left his apartment, went across the hall, and the doors in our apartments, like, they lock when you shut them automatically, and we had a chair holding ours open so that it wouldn't lock. And he took the chair out of the door, and it locked, and we were locked out because we left our keys inside because we were like, oh, we don't need to bring them over because we have that chair in the door. So he locks us out of our room. Whether it's on accident or on purpose, I don't know. I'll probably never know. So we had to call our RA and pay the, like, whatever, $25 it is to get your door opened, because he locked us out, and he said it was an accident and everything, but that was, like, the first weird thing that kind of, like, set us off. The second weird thing was that he would always ask us to, like, come over to his apartment and, like, drink with them. And he was over 21, as were the other 2 guys, so I think he, like, thought that that would intrigue us, that, they were old enough to buy booze and we weren't, so, but, like, it didn't, like, we didn't want to go over and drink with him. That just seemed weird. So we always said no, and, we also never really saw him leave his apartment. The only time I saw him leave was to come over to our apartment, which was like almost never. He would leave his door open and say hi to us when he saw us in the hall and stuff, but he never left. And he never said like what he was majoring in. He never talked about his classes. So we were like, who is this guy? Like, is he even a student? It was weird. So one day, I come home from class, and I had all early classes and then really late rehearsal at night because I was a music major. So I always took naps in the afternoon. I come home to my apartment from class, and I see one of my other roommates, Rachel, is there, and she was just about to go take a nap too. So we're like, okay, good night, like, taking our naps now. And so I go to sleep, and just as I had fallen asleep, all of a sudden I hear, like, people in the hall yelling, and what sounds like someone banging on someone's door. And it sounded kind of, like, far away in the hall, so I was just like, oh, it's just people being crazy. And I just kind of ignored it and went back to sleep. And then I wake up again because I hear the sound, and it sounds like it's like really close. It sounds like it's like right outside my door, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I just didn't want to have to deal with someone being stupid and like trying to play a prank on us or something. So I'm like, what the heck? And I just decided to ignore it. And then I hear someone yell, police, come outside! Like, open your door right now. And I was like, what the fuck? So I opened my door, and sure enough, there was a police officer standing there, and he wasn't like a campus security guy, like he was a legit like police officer. And I was like, oh my god, like what? And I saw like he had a gun in his holster, and I was like really freaked out because I was like, oh my god, like I didn't do anything illegal, what is happening? And I noticed that my roommate Rachel was also had been called out of her room, and we were both just standing there looking at each other like, what is happening? So he leads us outside, and in the hallway, I'm not kidding, on every person's door in the hallway is a police officer standing outside of it, armed with like a big gun, like a huge gun, like a rifle. And I was like, what is this? Like, this can't be a joke. Like, what is happening? So we were on the end of the hallway, so there was a staircase right next to our right outside our door. So I was like getting ready to go walk down the staircase because they said we had to exit the building, and he's like, no, 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 you can't go that way. And I was like, okay. So they had to escort us down like the staircase on the opposite side of the building, get outside. I notice every single person in my building, including my RAs, are standing out there, and I start asking people what's going on, and nobody knows. Like, everyone's like, I don't know, they just told us to come outside, and we were thinking like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is happening? So we were outside for maybe like half an hour, and I kept asking, there was a lot of police officers outside too, I kept asking the police officers, like, what is going on? Like, why is this happening? Like, you're really scaring everyone. Did the officers have guns? Like, is everyone okay? Like, what happened? And they wouldn't tell us. And I was starting to get mad because I was like, I feel like I have a right to know. They dragged me out of my room. They have guns. Something's going on in my apartment building, and I'm scared, as is the rest of, you know, my building, and they just wouldn't tell us. So I was like, great, this is fabulous. So after about half an hour, they let us go inside. They were like, all clear, and they like let us go inside, and I'm like, what the heck? And they still didn't say anything. A couple days later, I finally found out what happened, and it was weird, guys. So before I tell you what happened, let me back up. For the past like week or two, some weird stuff kind of had started going on in our building. All of the cameras in our building, there was cameras in every hall, were covered up with pieces of paper, like people do when they like rob a bank. They like put something over the camera, and like we just assumed it was just like a prank. You know, college kids are silly, so we're like, okay, someone's just being stupid. But no one actually knew who it was. Like, all of the people, all of us in the building, like, were like, oh, did you do that? And then I was like, no, no. So we're like, who did that? People were starting to find like weird like flyers outside of their door, and the flyers didn't make any sense. It was something talking about like the Illuminati, and it just seemed like crazy, but people were finding them all over their door. Turns out that the guy doing that was the scary guy from across the hall, the guy that gave all of us a really weird feeling about him. And I guess what happened is he spoke with the dean of the school, told him that he was going to kill him and then blow up the rest of the school, and he already had bombs made and planted, and that he was ready to like blow us all to smithereens at any second. So regardless of whether that was a serious threat or not, like, they have to take it seriously, obviously. So they were like, okay, that was like a bomb threat and also a murder threat, so we gotta find this guy. So they found him, they went to his apartment, and he was in there, and like, obviously when he saw the police, he was like, oh no. So he ran. He, like, made a run for it, and they couldn't find him anywhere for a long time. And he was considered armed because they didn't know if he was or not, and he was considered dangerous because he was, like, a huge dude, and, like, he could, like, take down a bunch of police officers at once if he really wanted to. So, that's why we had to leave the building, because they weren't sure if he was still in the building, and since he was considered armed and dangerous, they didn't want him to accidentally hurt one of us. So, looking back on that, after I learned that, I was like, holy crap, that's really scary that we, because I thought, like, it was just some sort of weird drill or something, but we were, like, in actual danger, and that was really freaky. So eventually they got him, and they placed him under arrest, and he actually went to a psychiatric facility because he had some serious problems. Like, I'm not sure exactly what the problems were, but it was something bad. And when they went and searched his apartment, they found all this weird stuff. They found a bunch of, like, drugs and needles. After all that happened, I went across the hall and I talked to the other guys that lived with him, and I was like, you guys, like, did you notice anything weird with him? Because, like, you guys were living with him. Like, did he, like, freak you guys out at all? And they were like, oh yeah, he did. Like, he did some weird stuff. And I was like, oh my god, what did he do? And I guess he was always drinking and doing drugs, and he also, like, took a lot of cough medicine all the time, like as a drug. He was constantly, like, giving people money, but not, like, in a nice way. Like, he would take all of this, like, change and cash that he had, and he would, like, throw it away or put it down the garbage disposal, and his roommates were like, whoa, why are you doing that? And he's like, it's worthless, like, I don't need this, like, money is not, like, a real thing or something. And they were like, okay, how about you just give it to us? And so he ended up giving them, like, all of his money, which obviously they couldn't keep or anything, but he did that. He was constantly talking about how, like, the Illuminati was everywhere, and that you could see it in all of these different things. Like, you could see, like, the symbol on, like, a Coke can, or, like, we had a bridge on campus that was, like, kind of triangular, and they were like, he was like, look, Illuminati. He just did all sorts of weird stuff, and it was just really freaky. And, like, I was kind of like, ugh, like, shooken up for the next, like, week or so about that, because it was just so weird. And I'm just really glad that no one got hurt, but it was very strange. And then for a long time after, I was just, like, freaked out at the thought that I had been, like, right across the hall and interacting and almost, like, alone with this guy that turned out to be crazy and possibly dangerous, and it was just really weird. But anyways, something made me think of that the other day, and it just came, like, screaming back to me, that memory, and I was like, whoa, weird. Yeah, that's my story.